to another video. It is currently 8:30 a.m. right now, and I'm about to eat my breakfast. It's this beautiful bowl of oatmeal, obviously. So while I'm waiting for this beautiful bowl of oatmeal to cool down a little bit, since I literally just made it, I just want to chat with you guys a little bit. If you are new here, then hello, hi, welcome to my channel. I talk about a lot of things, and I do a lot of random different things on my channel, and every season of my life is going to be a little different. So for this season of my life, we have been focusing on just, first of all, it's quarantine season. Like, we got the whole COVID pandemic going on, so a lot of us are just at home, including me. I haven't done a lot of vlogs lately because it's literally like the same thing every day. Like, it's a pretty routine thing. But the one thing that has been different, at least in this season of my life, is I have been working to get my period back, and I'm really excited to say that like 2 weeks ago it did happen. I got my period. I started spotting for a couple days, and I was like, oh, I don't know what this is. So I just kept wiping, and I kept seeing like pink. First of all, maybe I should have warned you guys, like, if this is TMI for those of you who are uncomfortable with talking about like menstrual cycles and like feminine health, then this video probably isn't for you, and like this whole channel probably isn't for you, at least for the next couple months. But for those of you who are interested in this, or maybe you're going through the same thing, then I went through this all-in process, I want to say in the beginning of March, and this included eating a lot of food, basically cutting out all exercise and limiting it to just light stretching and walking, and just trying to relax as much as possible. And I think it's safe to say now that I am cycling. However, just because I've had my one period doesn't mean that I'm going to change things, and I'm going to go into that in a little bit, what I plan on doing now, and just some lab values, because I think it's important to see like the objectives. I did get my blood tests taken when I started my all-in journey, and I did take my blood test while I was menstruating on like the 3rd day, because that's when I was supposed to, and I got the lab results back, and I was like, whoa, this is like pretty insane how in line it is with what a menstrual cycle is supposed to look like. So I'll bring you guys through that in a little bit, but for now I'm going to eat this breakfast and digest a little bit, and then I'll come back and chat with you. Okay, so before we take a look at my own test results, I think we should have a quick refresher on how hormones interact with each other and the body in a typical menstrual cycle. So this blue line is estradiol, also known as estrogen, but estradiol is actually a form of estrogen. This is probably the most popular of female hormones. So during the follicular phase of the menstrual cycle, which starts on the first day bleeding, so this is the first day, right here where I'm pointing, egg-containing follicles in the ovary produces a low level of estradiol. That's why it's kind of lower down here. Estradiol signals the hypothalamus to release another protein called gonadotropin-releasing hormone. At the beginning of the cycle, estradiol signals to the hypothalamus are low, which means that the GnRH produced will come in slow, low pulses, but just enough to release a small amount of FSH, also known as follicle-stimulating hormone. FSH aids in the growth and maturation of the egg growing inside the follicle. As the follicular phase continues, this is this area right here, this is called the follicular phase, by the way. So as this phase continues, FSH increases to a small degree, causing more maturation and growth of the egg, which produces more estradiol. So notice how here the FSH is slowly rising, and then so is the estradiol right here. So once the egg has fully matured around day 12 to 13 of the cycle, the level of estradiol, so this is 12 to 13, right? The level of estradiol is much higher now than it was on day 1 of the period. This triggers an increase in GnRH release, which, you guessed it, spikes FSH and another hormone called luteinizing hormone. So notice how here, remember that the red line is FSH, the blue line is estradiol, and now we have this luteinizing hormone, which is this purple line right here. So egg is fully matured right here, we have a spike in this FSH, and we have a spike in this LH. The spike in LH right here causes the follicle to burst open and release the egg about 36 hours later. So now we have the second half of the cycle, which is also known as the luteal phase. In the luteal phase, the leftover follicle, which is the part that held the growing egg, becomes the corpus luteum, corpus meaning body, and begins to pump out progesterone. which is this blue line right here that's like this broad curve. So progesterone actually has a role in stopping LH production from the GnRH, which is why you'll notice that this purple line now is decreasing because we no longer need to release any more eggs. There's no egg there to release. The rise in progesterone also causes a thickening in the uterus lining, which is the source of the blood for when one bleeds during a menstrual cycle. The progesterone continues to rise until about the middle of the luteal phase, around cycle day 21, and then starts to decrease again. So you notice here, right here is the peak, cycle day 21, and it begins to decrease again unless the embryo implants in the lining of the uterus. The drop in progesterone back to baseline level initiates the menstrual bleeding to clear the uterus of unused nutrients and blood, and thus begins this day 1 of the cycle again, in which we have the bleeding. Alright, so that being said, let's take a look at my lab results. So the first hormone panel that I did, I actually went to a Quest lab, and that was about a week into my all-in journey, because as soon as I learned about it and as soon as I made the decision to do it, I didn't really wait for lab results. Intuitively, I felt like I knew what I had to do. So I went in and I got my blood results. Suffice it to say that I was a little disappointed in the fact that my blood results were normal, which is kind of odd for most people. But when I was looking at it, I was like, well, if everything says that it's normal, then why am I not having my period? So let's just take a look at it and we'll talk about it together. So right away, I saw that my estradiol, which is, as I just mentioned, a form of estrogen, I was like, well, it's normal, so it's not low. What does that mean? And I looked up and I was like, okay, prolactin is normal, LH is normal, FSH is normal, what's going on? My TSH is normal. And these two other things on the top, like, I don't understand what they mean. So if it's normal, then what's going on? I don't get it. So I did a little bit more digging, and I found out that in the follicular phase, which is where you want to kind of base your results off of if you're getting a hormone panel and you're not getting a period, and you're in the follicular phase, the LH to FSH ratio that you should have is about 1:1. So my LH was at a 4 and my FSH was at a 9, which means my ratio was 0.44. And that is way lower than a 1:1 ratio. And I was like, okay, that I guess makes sense as to why I'm not having a period, but my estrogen kind of seems normal. And for some reason, I still didn't believe this in myself. So then I talked to Dr. Nicola Rinaldi, who does blood result interpretation specifically for HA. She told me that LH should be a little bit closer to your FSH number, which mine wasn't. And then she looked down at my estrogen and let me know that while my estradiol estrogen is kind of in the normal end, it is still on the low end. And then looking at my DHEA, which I don't know why it wasn't labeled as red or green, it is definitely lower than the mid-follicular phase. DHEA is a precursor to estrogen. DHEA, just like estrogen and a lot of other hormones in our body, are inversely related to cortisol, which is a stress hormone. I already knew that excess stress can also lead to HA. The advice that I was given by Dr. Nicola Rinaldi was to just keep doing what I'm doing, continue with the all-in process, eat more food, and see what happens. And I followed that, and a couple weeks later, I started feeling symptoms. I was getting super emotional. I felt my body was changing in a very, very different way. One day I was just crying for no reason, and I went to the bathroom and I was like, whoa, I'm bleeding. And then I decided this would be a very good time to see what my lab results look like now. Now, before I go into this, two things. When I say recovery, I don't mean eating disorder recovery. There's this misconception that recovery is exclusive for eating disorder recovery. Although I did struggle with an eating disorder in my past, this type of recovery is not relevant to my eating disorder or eating disorder tendencies. It was more of a recovery for my period. Although hypothalamic amenorrhea and eating disorders do manifest together, they definitely can happen separately. There are a lot of people who don't or never had eating disorders in their lives and still ended up with hypothalamic amenorrhea. So I wanted to make sure that those two concepts are separate for each other, just to avoid any misconceptions. Secondly, this video is in collaboration with LetsGetChecked, whose mission is to make professional health testing easily accessible and to ensure that no individual ever puts off a test due to not wanting to or being able to visit a healthcare provider, or a blood test center. Their laboratories are CLIA approved and CAP accredited, which are the highest ranking levels of accreditation. Additionally, they make blood testing super easy, and it's a lot more affordable, in my opinion, than going to an actual test center. So the amount of money that I spent on Let's Get Checked was about the same amount as the amount of money that I spent at Quest Diagnostics with health insurance, but this with no health insurance still cost me the same amount. So much easier and a lot less stress about it. So this video is in collaboration with Let's Get Checked, and I do have a 20% off discount code for you guys in the description below, or you can just use Amanda20. You can check anything. Personally, I used it to check my female hormone panel as well as my cortisol levels, since I was curious as to what they were, but you can also use it to find out a lot of different things. There's STD testing, B12, iron, vitamin D, and so on. Before I show you guys my lab results, it was a very interesting process. So I got this box, and what you do is you basically prick your finger with a little thing, kind of similar to how people check their blood sugars. And then I had to kind of like squeeze a little bit of blood into a small container and then shake it up a little bit and then send it out again. So the time of hormone testing is really important for female hormones, at least, because like I said before, we do have different levels at different times of our cycle. So what they recommended is to take your test 3 days into your menstrual cycle. So I took mine 3 days after my first bleed, which I didn't understand at the time, but then when I got my blood results back and saw it and compared it to the charts, I was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. And it was super cool because my blood results were like pretty much in the same ratios that you would expect for a normal cycle, and I was like super stoked. So I got my blood results back online. You can either use their Let's Get Checked app, or you can go onto the website, and I see that my luteinizing hormone is at a 4, my FSH, my follicle stimulating hormone, is at a 5. Recall that earlier I said that it should be around 1-to-1 ratio. My prolactin was at a 5.3 and my estradiol was at a 13, which is a little bit on the low end. So although it's still considered normal, I would still consider these lab results lower than I would want them personally for myself. But I know that this is okay because it's the first period that I've had in a very long time, and I just was curious. I have no expectations of my body. I'm just doing the best that I can, and I just wanted to know, you know, what is she looking like on the inside? So then looking at the chart, which I will pull up. So now we're looking at the chart, and it makes a lot of sense, right? The red line here is the follicle stimulating hormone. The purple line is luteinizing hormone. So if we look at the female hormone markers, follicle stimulating hormone is at a 5, which is slightly higher than luteinizing hormone, which we see here on the chart. And then estradiol is at a 13, which is on the low end. But this is the time of the cycle that our estradiol is actually supposed to be a little bit lower anyway. Like I mentioned before, it's going to get higher as we get closer and closer to ovulation. So anyway, those are my lab results. I think it's super cool to see what's going on the inside of my body, and science is allowing us to literally check what's going on at every step of the way. So if you're interested in trying out Let's Get Checked, then make sure you check out the link in the description below, and you can use my code Amanda20 for 20% off any of your lab tests. Anyway, where are we going from here? Now that I've gotten my first period, what am I going to do? Am I gonna go back to exercising the way that I was? The answer for this is no. I'm just gonna do the same exact thing. And it's actually recommended in the book No Period Now What, which has basically been like my guide throughout this whole journey. So if any of you guys or somebody that you know is going through missing period or irregular periods due to hypothalamic amenorrhea, I would highly recommend getting and reading the book No Period Now What by Dr. Nicola Rinaldi about having a period, being able to get pregnant. Even if you don't care about being pregnant, it's a really good thing to know and just be aware of for yourself. In the book No Period Now What, they actually recommend not changing anything for the next 3 cycles because the luteal phase actually shortens over time as your body gets used to, okay, so we're safe, we can cycle, we can get periods, you know, she's in this place where she's ready to have babies. Not having a baby, but this is what we want our body to know so that it can stay safe and cycle hormones healthily. The luteal phase will actually shorten, like I said, over time and become more regular. For a lot of people, their first cycle can last for almost like 40, 50 days.
This is editing Amanda. I would like to confirm this statement. I'm currently editing this a month later because I had to get a new laptop, long story short. I actually got my second period and I'm having it right now. And the cramps are excruciating, but that's okay. And I would like to confirm what I just said. I didn't get my next period until day 40, and now it's like day 3 of the next cycle. So, you know, I mean, yeah. Okay, I'm just gonna hand the mic back to the other me.
Until they get another period. And then after that, it'll shorten again, and after that, shorten again. But I want to have at least 3 good cycles, 3 healthy bleeds just under my belt so that I know the signs of my ovulation, I know how long it takes approximately, I know what can affect it, and I know what to look for when the period comes. So that in the coming periods, if something feels off, I'm like, oh, okay, well, I've experienced that before already. One of the biggest things that held me back from keeping my period the first time I lost it a long time ago was that I didn't maintain myself in the aftercare of it. I kind of just got my first period and I was like, well, I'm just gonna go back to eating and exercising the way that I was before and just go super hard because I'm healthy now. Well, I mean, while I am overall healthy, this is not something that I want to play around with or mess around with anymore. Like, I want my body to know that it's in a safe spot. So I'm just gonna continue exercising at the minimum, yoga, light stretching. So I definitely will keep you guys updated. There's a lot going on in my life at the moment, but make sure you stay subscribed so you know when I'm posting another video. I'm pretty active on Instagram, so make sure you check me out over there. For the longer, more explanation type of videos, I do like to post them here on YouTube, so, you know, I'm on different mediums of social media all the time. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you were able to learn a little bit more about your body if you are a female, or if you're a male, I hope you're able to appreciate the female body a little bit more. So with that, I hope you are having a wonderful morning, noon, day, or night wherever you are, and I'll see you next time. Bye.